Another important point that we should have in mind, namely, now we have so-called digital generations in school, and we are, or actually the research shows that the students are different that were students before this digital era. And the students require some special approach to teaching and learning, which is very well, I would say, connected to what I have presented as an efficient teaching and learning. They are not able to be concentrated on certain topic for a long time. They are very quick, they observe learning materials quickly and superficially. They are on one side interested for collaboration with the others, but on the other side, in certain activities, they're much more individualistic than the previous generations. Again, here game design and games can offer many of these opportunities for digital generations and for their efficient learning. Marshall McLuhan, he was a famous Canadian philosopher of communication theory. He predicted World Wide Web maybe 30, 40 years before it actually appeared. He was talking about global village, and in his ideas we can recognize exactly what is happening now. So he foreseen this development, and he said, as you see here, anyone who makes a distinction between games and learning doesn't know the first thing about either. So actually we can find out that the playing games or learning is actually very, very similar activity. And as we know that children or people learned most in their early phases of development when they are playing. They never learn so much in so short time later in their development. There are, of course, also other reasons for this, but we should take this into account and use this statement for creating opportunities for learning for our students. As we define learning, that it is an activity that leads to changes in attitudes, behavior, and skills, we can say the same for the games. What are the more concrete characteristics of productive learning and of games? It is challenging open-ended problems. We try to create such opportunities in learning environments, and our games and games in general also can have this characteristic. Then there are goal-based scenarios where player is involved in interactive cycle of goal-based interactive problem solving. And what is very important in learning and also in playing games is to have formative feedback. When we have these more traditional ways of learning where teacher is transmitting knowledge, there is not so much need for feedback. But when students are learning actively, so they are researching, they are trying to find solutions to problems and so on, there is a very high need for formative feedback. And it is the same in the games. When you play a game and when you make a mistake, you are punished usually in some way. And that's very useful because from that punishment, we can learn a lot. And it is the same with learning, as I mentioned yesterday. If we are able to make mistakes only on the final exam, it is too late for mistake to be an important contribution to learning. But if there are opportunities during the whole process of learning to make mistakes and to get formative feedback, this is very useful and can help students to learn better and to be more motivated and to be able to detect the problems and also to find a way how to solve them. Of course, we can say that appropriate games, well-designed games, can actually support learning across very different content areas and domains. It is not maybe useful just in certain area, but we can find examples of game-based learning in practically all different areas or subjects. We have heard about many interesting uses of game-based learning, not just in primary education or in secondary education, but also in higher education. This is becoming a very important approach to learning also in most prominent universities in the world, because they realized all these advantages of learning. We had examples of very productive use of learning in, let's say, crisis management, in management of very big natural or other type of disasters. You cannot create such a scenario or such a context in the real world, or it can be very limited. But in the form of a game, maybe we would not call it directly game, but it is actually the same as the game. We could do many interesting things. Some leading air companies are selecting their staff using different types of games, because they can put the candidate into an environment which is stressful, where they have to manage some stressful situations. And when they play it in a game, they can see how they can react, how they can manage stress. Then in healthcare, and certainly in many different technical areas, it can be used as well. It can be used in public administration, when you have to deal with the customers, when you have to negotiate, and so on. So opportunities are many. And also pilots who are being trained actually use the kind of games, because simulators which are used for pilot training is a kind of gaming environment. Again, we are not calling them maybe game, but it has all the characteristics of games. I saw in our faculty of naval studies, so where the captains or the staff in the big ships are being trained, they also have such training labs, where you have the feeling that you are on board of a transocean enormous ship, and you are directing the ship, and you are learning what is happening. So these are just a few of examples that we already seen that they are used in practice. Of course, not all games are not good for all learners and for all educational goals. So when we are designing games, and where we are all designing game-based learning, we have to find appropriate games, or we have to design appropriate games And this activity starts with the setting of learning goals. And from learning goals, then we can identify what are the best didactical approaches to reach these learning goals. And then from didactical approaches, we can, or combining didactical approaches and some story, which is used to somehow hide this educational goal, we can create a scenario for a game. And this is, it is, we have to emphasize here that it is necessary to understand that the game, the goals of the game and learning goals are not identical. If we create a game where we, let's say, try, the player is trying to solve a princess which has been taken, by some bad people. The player can do it by solving certain problems, which can be connected with maybe security in using networks or different applications or services in the internet. And so the goal of the game is to solve the princess, but the learning goal is to learn something about the security in the network. If there are so many advantages, we can ask ourselves why games are not used more widely in classrooms and in educational system at all. One is that we always have time constraints in the learning process, and I emphasize that if we have very important learning goals, and teacher has enough autonomy to decide that this is very important, and we have the opportunity to use the game-based learning, it is worth investing more time and more effort in game-based learning and to have much better results than with traditional learning. Then cost and availability of appropriate games can be the problem as well. Maybe cost not so much because we have wide access to different type of games, but it is very often problem the appropriateness of the games, because they are not created, or we do not have enough games created to reach certain learning goals. And what is also very big problem is the lack of knowledge about integration of games into learning. So teachers do not know enough about game-based learning, are not familiar with all the advantages, and that is very often the reason why they avoid to using games. And of course, lack of good research on games and learning. The situation is improving in last years. If you check the scientific journals about learning and teaching, you will find out that game-based learning is one of the most topical and most and very frequently used topic in these papers. Let's define some important characteristic of a game. So game is by definition structure or semi-structured context where players have goals and they try to achieve these goals by overcoming challenges. This is very broad definition, but it actually shows that all this, what I have told so far, can be actually put into this idea of game. There are some additional, I would say, problems or issues that can be added in a game. by defining different type of rules, which make game environment and game itself more difficult, but gives more pleasure to the player when they solve a problem. When we have some failures or wrong decision in the game, there should be a kind of penalty. So students can lose some points or can lose some goods or artifacts he has already collected in the games, or is pushed back in on his way to the goal. So it is the idea of penalty is to make player think about his activities he has just made and why he was punished, and then to recognize what was wrong in his decision or in his problem solving. Games can involve, of course, one player alone, but games are more interesting when so the player is usually playing with the computer or with some kind of authority somewhere, but it is more often that we have games which are a kind of competition between different players. And we also have games where where players can have some advantages if they can cooperate, and we are somehow promoting such type of games where there is not so much competition, but there is rather cooperation and collaboration. So student player himself or herself cannot reach the goal, but when he or she is connected with the others, they can together find the solution to problem and can proceed in a game. What is important in games, and we are emphasizing this these characteristics of games in learning, is that when you play a game, you are in a special mode. You are, or the player is actually engaged in the activities which are connected with the game. And Csikszentmihalyi, the psychologist, described this activity, this state, as flow. So when people can reach this state of flow, making different things. Some people reach flow when they are engaged in some sport activities. The others are maybe in kind of flow status when they read the book. And games also can cause this. When you are in flow state, you forget about time, you forget about all other needs you have. You are not hungry, you are not thirsty, but you just are focused on the activities which are connected or which help make flow. And when students or players are in flow, they have a sense of enjoyment. They usually have a sense of control, which is very important, because we always want to be in control of the environment where we are in, and this gives us a kind of satisfaction. And we can easily or more easily achieve when the skills we have or player has are matched with the challenges he's facing. So in the games, you know that we have different levels of games, with very easy games or very easy level, and it can then increase. And in good games, the game itself can somehow detect what is the player's what are the player's skills and competencies, and can adapt this difficulty level to the player. And when it is this level is chosen correctly, the player is playing game, or if we are talking about learning, learner is in this zone of proximal development, which you probably heard about it. It is the difficulty of learning material where student can solve problems with a little help from somebody else. It can be some suggestions given by the game or by some characters in the game. It can be teacher, it can be a colleague, it can be an expert from the outside. So this is very important, and this is the explanation why game-based learning can be very efficient if we are able to somehow to satisfy all these requirements and to reach these levels that I have just talked about. There is another statement given by Prensky. Prensky is a scientist who is very deeply involved in game design and game-based learning. He said that in the flow state, the challenge is presented and the ability of player to solve them are almost perfectly matched. And player can often accomplish things that he didn't think he could. And it gives him a great deal of pleasure, because solving problems and being successful and being in control of the activities give us or player a deal of pleasure. As I mentioned, this can be this state can be achieved in different activities, but certainly the game is one of those activities, and we can use it. We could use also other types of activities in learning. If people enjoy reading books, they could also achieve efficient learning, and maybe in some activities connected with sports, we could also put some learning goals into such activities, but we here now focus on games. Here are some additional suggestions or instructions how to create a flow state and how to create successful games. I'm not going in all details. If you are interested in this, as I said, the presentations will be available and you can check this later. But more or less the most important points I have already presented. And if you check these different suggestions by different researchers, at the end you see that they are talking about more or less the same, maybe using some different terms, some different examples, but the essence is the same. When we try to use game as a tool or as an environment for learning activities, we have games which are called serious games. Some also use term learning games or didactic games, but serious games is probably most popular term for this type of games. So even learning games should be funny, because otherwise they are not funny. When we started creating games with our students, in the beginning, their games actually were very boring, or we could hardly call them games, because they had in mind mainly learning goals. But when you realize that the game should be funny, and when they realized this, they improved a lot their games, and they are really games, and they are also serious. So both is important, to be funny and to have learning goals incorporated. And in good games, usually learning goals are somehow hidden in the game and in game activity, so that students are usually not, or players are usually not aware of what they are learning. They are just enjoying their playing game, and the learning goals are hidden somewhere. Which elements can contribute to especially this motivational aspect of learning? One is sensual stimuli with games which are created in digital environments. We have a lot of opportunity to make them interesting, to make them nice to see, and to attract students to use them. Then another dimension is to use fantasy. The games can help students or players to have imaginations about characters, about what is happening in the game. Then there are always challenges in a game, because they somehow push or pull player to continue the game. And of course, curiosity. We never know, or student or player never knows what's going to happen next. Of course, the games that we are developing are reprogrammed in advance, and there are just already well-defined paths to the end, but player is not aware of this and doesn't know how his decisions, how his activities can actually cause different directions, or can direct him using different paths to have to reach the goal or to solve the problem. So what else, or what are the most important elements there should be in a game? Of course, there should be interesting, compelling storyline. Stories, we use this idea in the project as well. Stories are very useful for learning, because learners are somehow emotionally involved in what is storytelling about, and this attracts them to be more cautious about what is going on, to invest more effort to solve the problems, and so on. And as I mentioned earlier, there should be some conflicts or challenges which need to be solved. There should be rules of engagement, because you cannot do anything, but there are some rules which allows you to do certain things and doesn't allow you to do other things. There is very important characteristic of games is interaction, because each game needs to be interactive. And these interactivities give a player opportunity to control the situation, to direct his character or other characters in the game environment, and to receive some feedback, of course. With good decisions or wrong decisions, he can continue in on his path to the goal, or he can be pushed back. And yeah, that are the most important elements of the game. And again, as I mentioned earlier, these are usually also characteristic of good learning process. This more or less they are the same. Games are not useful just in formal education, but can be used also for training and for informal learning. You can imagine that kids that have homework to play a game are not so unhappy if they have to fill in some forums or to write down essay. They are usually unhappy, but if you ask them to play a game, they are usually happy, and they could learn if the game is well designed as much as with doing something else which is not so nice to do. Games are not just a vehicle for delivering learning, but they can be used also in the beginning of lecture, let's say, to initiate discussion. teacher can show a piece of game, or students can play a piece of game, and then get some ideas or get some challenges, some questions from the game, and then to continue with some other means. Games can motivate students, certainly for different activities. And when we design games, actually, when students design games and learn through game design, it is another perspective, and it requires even more intensive involvement of a student. Our students are future computer science teachers, and usually also math teachers. We have two subject teachers. And when they start designing a game, this is a process of 1 semester. They have to actually first identify which learning goals are difficult to achieve with students, and then to select one of such difficult to achieve learning goal, and then to think what didactical method to use to achieve this goal, and then to invent a kind of story which is suitable for the problem we are dealing with, and then develop a scenario for a game. So you see that it is a long procedure, and at the end, of course, they have to design and implement the game. As they are computer science teachers, they are able to program the game at the end, but it is very, I would say, a lot of work needs to be done before they can start programming, because they have to be to concentrate on these didactical aspects, and so they combine technical knowledge and also didactical aspects of the topic they are integrating in a game. I have told most of these things. Yeah, what is very important when we use games in learning is that it is not enough just to give students a game and say, okay, play the game, and then we finish this learning, because it is usually necessary to do something else. Sometimes it is necessary to prepare students before they play a game. Sometimes it depends on the type of the game. The playing game without getting any instructions is a challenge, and we try to use this. But at the end, there always need to be a kind of reflection on what has been learned, how students perceived this, what happened in the game, and also to check if they understood correctly the problem, if their way to solve the problem was correct, and so on. So you see that there are many different activities which can be used or which should be added to the gameplay in order to achieve learning goals in appropriate way. So as I said, it can be, or they can be used before gameplay, they can be used during gameplay, but there has to be something which follows gameplay and which gives a kind of conclusion of the activities connected with gameplay and with game-based learning as a whole. Here is actually once again abstracted what I have just told you. I have a lot other things to tell you, so I will go quickly through this information. I have collected the statements that were given by some very famous, well-known and respected scientists in this field. you see that Jean Piaget, which is very respected author and scientist, said many things about play. You can read it by yourself. I'm not going to read it for you, because theory of multimedia learning says that telling things that learners can see on slide is counterproductive, because they are then confused whether to read what's written there or to listen to lecturer, and usually they decide to read because they can do it on their own pace, and the teacher is explaining in his own pace. So he's just disturbing students who would like to read what Jean Piaget said. So you see that he is suggesting that play is something very important in the learning processes. Then there is another well-known scientist. He was he also gives a statement. Gave statement about playing and games. So you can read what he said about it. So the main point of this statement is that the game is actually allows us to create a kind of artificial environment where learning can take place, and all the conditions which are needed for students to learn successfully can be prepared in such an environment. And the last one, also well known, and I'm sure that you are familiar with him, Lev Vygotsky, and his statement. He was the author of this idea of zone of proximal development and of importance of scaffolding or supporting learners. And as you see, he also supports the idea of using games, play on the games work. Okay, we are not going too much into details. Maybe just a few words about different theories of learning and using games. You know that in traditional pedagogy, this pedagogy was mostly based on behavioristic theory of learning, and the main idea which comes from this is to use drill and practice. And this used to be one of the most popular way of creating learning games in the beginning, when the possibilities for interaction between human and digital environment was not so well developed, it was not so easy. There were games where computer or other digital device prepared some problems, like some calculus questions. And students need to reply and to give an answer, and then he got confirmation, or he was informed that his answer was not correct. And after maybe having, let's say, a certain number of correct answers, there was a kind of stupid mini game offered where some monkeys throw bananas or did some stupid things, and it was motivation for students. But we are much more interested actually in other approaches which are more up to date or modern. So constructivist learning approach, where learning, as you know, is constructing knowledge, where sensory data, so what we see, what we hear, what we touch is combined with existing knowledge to create new knowledge. And the main idea or the main way of learning is to discover things and to make inquiries, so to make a kind of research. And learning also take place in a social context, so that there is a kind of interaction between students and teacher and students themselves. And nowadays, good learning games actually are mostly based on this idea, and serious games replicate real life scenario. And as I mentioned earlier already, game represents a model of abstracted reality, and player has a certain role in this environment. Okay, and just few words at the end about game design-based learning. As I mentioned, we are practicing this with our students. Together with my colleague, we have developed a kind of approach to this game design that we call SEDI, and we published many papers about this, and many colleagues all around Europe are actually using this approach now in game design-based learning, where students first, as I mentioned before, first specify didactical problem, and they are in a role of a teacher in this first phase, and then he moves into a role of a game designer, where he has to develop the game, of course, based or focused on the didactical problem which was identified in the early phase. Then students, when developed games, they go to schools, they bring their games with them to schools, and they test them, they evaluate them with students in schools, and then they can improve this results or their games. Here are some interesting games that has been developed so far. Maybe I'm not going to explain all details. You can find the details in the slides. But this was one of the first games that we developed 20 years ago. It is about computers and about how computers are made. And this guy got a computer, and there was a storm, and his computer was damaged by lighting, and he has to find out how to repair it, to identify what's wrong, and then to go to earn some money by doing some interesting things, and then to go to store to buy appropriate components to repair his computer. This one is very topical now as well. Its title is Nick and Social Networks. Here is the story where this boy is trying to invite colleagues to his birthday party, and he would like to be more popular, and he's using social networks, and when he's doing something wrong, his rate is decreased. So if he publish some pictures of his colleagues when they are doing something wrong, they will not like him, and his rate is decreased. When he's using this stuff in school, again, he's losing his rate. So at the end, if he he also have to choose a password for his account, and if it's not appropriate one, he's again has problems. And Students like to play this game because they can repeat several times, and at the end they find out what is the appropriate behavior, what they should do, and they at the end they can reach the highest number of points, or they can invite the highest number of colleagues to be in school. You can. There is also another which is more oriented. Another game which is more oriented to computer science, where students are learning about variables and types of variables, and they have to help this creature to make an order in his lab. This is the same. And there is another one which was very successful, the game of sick computers. In this game, these computers get sick, and then they come to doctor and they tell the doctor about the problems they face. They have somehow described what is their problem. If the computer is infected by a kind of virus, worms, it is the problem of the player should find out what is this infection about, and then he can use certain medicine, certain antivirus or other type of program, and can help to heal this computer. So this was also very popular one. And the other games you can find. I will give you the link to our web page. I would just mention a problem where we actually worked together with Alden and Michaela, sorry, where we used and Murat, yeah, of course, yeah. So an old friends from this project. Here was the idea to that students are learning programming by developing games. It seems somehow impossible how to make games if they even cannot program yet, but actually with appropriate approach, it is possible. Games are usually prepared to some extent, and students then try to investigate to find out what should be maybe corrected or added to make the game as it was specified or desired. And that's these are some interesting games. We had here another goal, actually, to motivate girls for programming and for computer science, because usually girls are not so much interested in this, but we find out that with appropriate selection of goals, with appropriate selection of topics, we can also motivate them. And I know from my experience, when I started computer science, I was the first generation of computer science studies at the University of Ljubljana. And in my colleagues in that first generation, actually there was about 50-50 number of girls and boys. But at the end, because girls were much more serious, they finished in perhaps 75% of graduates were actually ladies. So they are very good in computer science, maybe in some senses even better than guys. Yeah, maybe just to tell you, if you are interested, I can just give you the link to our web page. I can create later on a QR code and give you. I must tell you that we also sent our games to to some competitions, and last year on a European competition, a European conference on game-based learning, our students won first and second prize. And the competition is very serious because there were also students from South Korea, from United States, even from the best UK universities in UK. I guess we beat students from Oxford. Wow. So you can. This is the. Oh, sorry. This is our web page. You can see it, and here you can find tens of these games that has been developed by our students. Each of these icon is a game with what students are supposed to prepare is not just to create the game. You see these two were won first and second prize in European competition on game-based learning. Here for each game, there is also explanation about the game, a short abstract, a few words about the authors, the content of the game, learning goals, instructions for playing games, and then you can also transfer game. Maya, yeah. Yes, I will prepare a QR code, or I will give you a link because I should say that Maya, one of member of our team, also developed a game in a group with her students. A ti si bila v Perteh, ko sta dobili naslednje leto? Aha, okay. So we don't have so many students. So there are just, last years we have less than 10 students in one generation in this study program. But as you see, all of them are participating in these activities. And this is another motivation for them, not just to create a game, but even to send the game to competition and even to be the best in Europe in developing girls games, sorry. Yeah, that's all I have prepared. I hope it was interesting for you.